good day to you. Welcome from the Engerati studio at the Asian Utility Week. And today with us, we are privileged to have Sonita Lontoh, and she's the head of global corporate marketing at Trilliant. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Do you want to give us, first of all, a bit of background on Trilliant?
Sure. So Trilliant is a smart communications platform company. So we provide smart communication solutions, networking hardware, software, and also professional services to enable utilities and cities to deploy smart grid and smart city applications. And our smart grid applications is not just one application, so not just smart metering, we can enable that, but also smart distribution on the distribution side and also smart consumer applications on the consumer side. We're based in Silicon Valley, but we have presence around the world, throughout North America, in Europe, in Asia Pacific, and also Latin America. And I would say we've been fortunate to have been able to work with leading utilities around the globe as well, representing about 85 million customers.
Wow. And based on that, Sonita, obviously Trilliant works with a diverse range of utilities, and what are the lessons that the company has learned that they can share to ensure a successful deployment, that will really deliver real benefits to utility operations and customers, especially to the Asian utility sector?
Great question. So I think one of the unique perspectives we have, having been able to work with all these very diverse utilities around the world, not just in developed countries, like the US and Europe, but also in developing countries in Latin America, in Asia Pacific, especially in Southeast Asia. I think one of the biggest lessons we've learned is that there is really no one size fits all when it comes to grid modernization efforts, because each country, each utility is operating within a different regulatory construct. For instance, in the UK, it's highly deregulated. Here in Southeast Asia, many of the utilities are government-owned monopolies, serving the whole country. And then the smart grid drivers, what we have found, are actually quite different as well. So in the developed economies, usually the drivers are energy efficiency, demand response, and integration of renewables or distributed energy resources like solar rooftops, electric vehicles, energy storage, and so on and so forth. But then when you go to developing countries in developing Asia, the drivers are mostly to increasing demand because the economy is growing, to improve reliability, and in certain cases also to improve the electrification rate and to reduce non-technical losses. So I would say one of the kind of biggest lessons learned that we have taken from these experiences is when you try to partner with utilities, really understand their specific context and drivers and really partner with them to deploy a smart grid application that best meets their needs today, but also evolve with them over years.
Yeah. I guess it's really just about focusing in on the exact needs.
Exactly.
Otherwise, a lot of time and money is wasted overall.
Yes.
I think for everybody. With regard to the Asia Pacific market, best practices and lessons learned from other regions of the world that may be actually applicable to the region itself. Is there something in particular that you can carry over from certain parts of the world to Asia Pacific?
Okay, excellent question. So I think before I answer that question, I want to take a step back a little bit, just a little context. I think a lot of foreign companies, when they come to Asia, they think of Asia as like one region, but it's really not. It's a big and diverse region, 48 countries, about 60% of the human population, live here. So we need to keep that in context. And again, referring back to my previous discussion, developing Asia, Japan, Korea, quite different from developed Asia, quite different from developing Asia. So just keep that all in context. But having said that, I think there are probably 3 lessons learned that we have seen from other deployments that can be applicable in Asia as well. The first one is, it's interesting because I think of smart grid or smart energy as really the intersection of technology, business models, and policy. So it's not just about technology. So I think the lessons learned would be, first of all, you need to have a long-term, sustainable, comprehensive policy. So the policymakers need to think of this as a strategic, industry in order to help with their country's global competitiveness and have a policy that's comprehensive and long-term and sustainable. The second is from a technology perspective, I think everyone needs to collaborate together to create an ecosystem where the technology can securely and easily interoperate with one another. Because if you really think about it, the smart grid, even smart cities, Internet of Things, eventually is about connecting devices and creating new applications and new business models. So they have to be able to interoperate. And I think last but not least, I think this is the biggest lesson learned from all of our experience, is really the education of the consumer and the stakeholder engagement. Because I think in the past, some utilities think of this as more of a technology infrastructure upgrade, but they forgot about the consumer stakeholder engagement part. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons learned. But there have been so many successful deployments around the world where the utilities have learned and they have devised consumer engagement programs that are successful, that basically articulate about the benefits and value proposition of the smart grid in terms that the consumers can understand. So instead of talking about kilowatt hours, consumers like, what's that, right? Talk about the benefits they get. For instance, smart grid technology can help improve reliability, which means less outages for you. And in the US, EPRI estimated outages cost the economy about $180 billion per year. Just imagine a reduction of 10% is already like contributing to the economy like billions of dollars. So talk about things like in terms that consumers can understand.
Really to the
Exactly.
Customer at the end of the day. And it's not really just this region, is it? I mean, it's worldwide.
It is worldwide.
Where you've got these smart grid and smart meter deployments across the world, and in developed countries, where they've been doing this for quite some time, and yet some are just not getting the customer engagement right. So I think it's a learning process still, isn't it?
Definitely.
It's quite a complex sector. The big trend at the moment, data analytics, appropriate since we were talking now about customer engagement and data. What is your view on it, and how best would you recommend that utilities approach the data analytics?
Sure.
How do they make sense out of this data?
Yeah, so data analytics is very important because at the end of the day, technology companies like us, we connect the devices, enable intelligence, and create all these billions of data that the utilities didn't have access before. However, data itself doesn't count, because unless you can turn that insights into actions, then it cannot deliver benefits for you or your operations or your end consumers. So the way Trilliant views the data analytics is very important. However, we believe our core competency is actually not in data analytics. We are a smart communications platform company, but we believe the data that we produce is high quality data, granular, and also almost real-time to real-time. And so the approach is we partner with an ecosystem of data analytics partners. I'm not going to mention all the names here because there are too many, but we keep building these analytics partners, so from distribution automation analytics, consumer engagement analytics, smart metering analytics. So we partner with all this kind of like end-to-end value chain data analytics so that they can leverage the data that is resulting from our system and then make insights for the utilities so the utilities can take actions.
Right, because without the proper analysis of it, it's just the data's worth nothing, isn't it?
Exactly.
Right. What is your view about the transition from smart grid to smart cities and Internet of Things? I think you wrote a paper with
the World Economic Forum. Yes.
Could you just expand a little bit on that for us?
Sure, definitely. I think first of all, a lot of people ask, what is Internet of Things? Okay, it's one of those things that is kind of hot these days, right? But the way we think about it again is connecting devices, smart devices, to enable new applications and new business models. So the way we view of the transition from smart grid to smart cities to Internet of Things is really about putting the right foundational platform from the get-go. Right. So the first application of these connected devices is really the smart grid, the energy vertical. But the exact same smart platform can then be extended to connect city infrastructures, like enabling smart street lights, smart traffic lights to ease congestions, smart security camera, to enhance security, smart environmental sensors to help with environmental efforts. So all of this city infrastructure can leverage the same network that has been put in, let's say by the utilities, for us to enable smart cities, right? And then from there, the vision is to enable to connect even more devices, that maybe you and I cannot even think of today, on the same platform, so that it again enables new connectivity, more smart devices. But all of these at the end of the day, like, why do we care about this? Because at the end, I think the goal is really to create a more efficient, cleaner, safer, and more sustainable way of living. So that's how we view it.
Fantastic.
Smart grid platform, smart cities on top of it, and eventually Internet of Things.
Yeah, equal sustainability.
Yes.
Okay. With regards to any exciting projects that Trilliant is involved with at the moment in this region, do you want to share maybe one with us?
You know what? I think as you can imagine, sometimes you know, we cannot share specifics without the customer's approval. But we are working with the utilities in the region, in Malaysia, in Thailand, and also in Vietnam, and we are also on pilot in the Philippines. So I would say that what we have seen is many in this region, they do care about definitely consumer engagement and demand response and all that. But also a lot of the applications that they want to tackle first is actually non-technical losses. Because I guess they have found out that in their operations there are a lot of inefficiencies, you know, so they would like to first tackle the leveraging smart technology to reduce non-technical losses. But of course, they won't just stop there. You know, a lot of these countries I just mentioned to you, the GDP growth is large, you know, like averaging about 5% compared to, let's say, the US 2%, Europe, you know, Europe pretty stagnant right now. So of course, they do have to upgrade their energy infrastructure in order to be able to meet, you know, the increasing demand in a more sustainable way. And the other thing also we've noticed that you know, these consumers are actually pretty sophisticated, because, you know, as these countries move up the kind of economic ladder, more and more people are moving to the middle class, and there are a lot of that is encouraging, and there's a lot of kind of trends in urbanizations, because if you notice cities in Asia, they're massive, like crazy, like Jakarta, for instance, in Indonesia, that's like a city of 20 million. And not just in developing Asia, but, you know, Japan, Tokyo is like 30 million. So, you know, like just with this massive urbanization trends, the policymakers and the utilities and cities, they really have to upgrade their infrastructure in order to be able to handle kind of like this massive influx or like activities in the city.
Definitely an exciting market to get into.
Definitely, yeah.
Just my last question. What message would you like to get across to the energy industry? I'm not going to say just utilities, but what message would you like to get across over the next 2 days?
I think the message I would like to get across is really, I would say 3 things. The first one is that this whole kind of modernization efforts is a journey, you know, because sometimes I think people do tend to be impatient, you know, especially for us, you know, we're vendors, we're like, oh, you know, like, let's get it done. But, you know, I think everyone should just understand it's a journey, and so we should enjoy the journey, right? And then the second one is you really should think long term. So do not think in a silo, you know, do not decide on a technology just for a specific use, but think about how can you choose the right technology that can help you with this particular use, but also can add new applications as you grow, you know, towards this journey. And then I would say last but not least, I think everyone, all the stakeholders in the community, so utilities, policymakers, consumer advocates, vendors, technology vendors like us, we all should just work together, you know, work together to find kind of like a common ground so that we can move forward, you know, as a whole, rather than, you know, focusing on specific things.
Yeah, that's great. That's a really good summary. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much
for your time. I trust you'll have a successful conference further. And to our viewers, thank you so much for joining us. Please note that there will be a number of other videos on the website, so please do have a look at those. Thank you for joining us.